Today, former Vice President Joe Biden announcing that Xavier Becerra will serve as the Secretary of Health and Human Services if we see a Biden presidency. Becerra, the current Attorney General in California, is an advocate for abortion and has targeted pro-life Americans for pretty much most of his career. And he's been a huge supporter of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. So the real question is this guy qualified to serve for that position? Again, this is an attorney serving as Attorney General. You're like a top cop. And then you put him in charge of Health and Human Services. Not quite sure where his background fits that position. Is from California, though. Senator Kamala Harris from California. Don't want to draw any conclusions. A man who knows a lot about the hypocrisies happening in the Golden State and maybe can help us connect the dots here between this ridiculous pick and a whole bunch of other nonsense going on with the former vice president and his cabinet picks. He's a good friend of ours here at the show, a Navy vet and a former congressional candidate, Joe Collins, back to the Real America. Hey, Joe, how are you?
Doing really good. Thank you for having me on your show.
Where do we begin? So much to talk about, from the lockdowns in your state out there to Kamala Harris's track record and what we could see if she becomes vice president. But I want to start with Mr. Becerra, because I know you're familiar with him, and living in California for years, such as I did, I'm familiar with this guy as well. I don't know why in the heck you would put someone who's been an attorney general and a lawyer for their whole life in charge of health and human services. Does that make any sense to you? Do you have any conclusions you'd like to draw and connections between why Mr. Biden would do that?
Well, I would say this. I don't think anything about the Biden-Harris administration makes sense. I mean, when you take an attorney general and make him in charge of the health and human services, knowing that he's been pro-abortion his whole entire career, it really blows my mind. But then we have to look at his pick in Kamala Harris, who has a track record of locking up blacks and Latinos. And I know it may be empowering, even, for a lot of black Democratic women to say that we have a person of color to sit in a powerful position as a vice president. But, just because you have color in your skin doesn't make you automatically qualify to sit in the seat like that. Just on the same token as Xavier Becerra being an attorney general doesn't necessarily make him qualified to be the Secretary for Health and Human Services.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is a guy who I'm pretty sure, if I recall, looking up the bio and remembering from several years ago, he was one of the attorneys that fought and argued in front of the Supreme Court for Obamacare. His background is law. He's an attorney. There's no health or medical or anything background in this guy's history that would say, yeah, he seems like he'd be a good pick for Secretary HHS. Yeah, that makes sense. No, there's got to be a favor owed, a connection. Something's going on there, I think, between Miss Harris and Becerra, where maybe good old Joey from the block got his arm twisted and said, yeah, you need to give this guy some sort of cabinet position, give him a big one. Here's one, Health and Human Services. Plus, we know they want to reenact all the things from the Affordable Care Act that President Trump got rid of, like the individual mandate and whatnot. That's my feeling. Your thoughts? Yeah. You think there's any special favors there?
Well, all I can say is woe to the Black and Latino community. I mean, you are putting an entire cabinet together who has created their entire career on locking up blacks and Latinos. Xavier Becerra, Joe Biden with the 94 crime bill, Kamala Harris, and her questionable track record. But this should be an eye-opener for the Republican Party, myself and other leaders of the party, that we need to start training younger conservative leaders so we can challenge our Democratic incumbents. I mean, throughout the United States, we can see that in Democratic strongholds or urban America, has been the most challenging for Republicans, but we have a lot of great candidates that are running and planning on running in 2022. Myself, again, we will be running. Then we have Angela Stanton King, who is running in Georgia, and we're still waiting for the results for her election. Carla Spalding, Aja Smith, C.J. King in New York, Rhonda Baldwin Kennedy. And we've had a great success in California with our leaders, Kevin McCarthy and Jessica Patterson, who are doing a fantastic job with flipping seats. But Now that we have a game plan from our experience in attacking the urban America with this election, hopefully we can put a plan together to start supporting more candidates running in urban cities so we can flip seats and have challengers for terrible politicians like Kamala Harris and Javier Becerra.
Let's hope so. And I'll tell you, I thought it was very telling that your state flipped so many blue seats back to red that were actually red before. And I don't recall, were there any big surprises as far as blue seats that actually went red? Because most of the flips were in the red column just 2, 4, or 6 years ago.
Well, we know that California silenced conservative voices, so I do want to give a congratulations to Mike Garcia, Michelle Steele, and all of the other candidates who were able to flip those seats from blue back to red. I think it's an amazing accomplishment. Now we have to start focusing on the inner cities. And like I said, we have a great amount of leadership. Now we have a great amount of experience, and we can bring that to the table, create a plan so we can flip California red. Because under Democratic leadership, we see the crumbling infrastructure. We see how our cities are crumbling. We see the homeless population is out of control. Jobs are leaving. And Joe Biden is very soft on China. He will not hold other countries accountable for what they're supposed to be doing when it comes to the United States. So this should be a lesson for all of America. This should be a lesson for our parties that we have to start grooming young conservatives to start taking these seats.
But Joe, wait a minute. I thought that Kamala and Joe and the BLM folks were going to help inner cities and black communities. I thought we raised those hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars all summer long while cities were being burned and businesses were being looted and rioted, and all this money was going to help places like the inner city in LA for brown and black communities. Isn't that what they promised? Isn't that what they said?
That's what they said, but we know the Democratic Party, they'll say one thing and do another thing. Expecting BLM to help you is like expecting not to get your esophagus cut up if you eat glass. And that's just the nature of the beast. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement, they have destroyed more inner cities than they have helped inner cities. And them expecting Joe Biden to do something for them is like expecting your oppressor to change laws that he created in order to oppress you. Joe Biden has had a track record of creating systemic racism that people feel exists in the United States by the bills that he has passed since the 1970s, his time in the Senate. And so I think the BLM movement made a huge mistake, but I also think that we as Republicans did not capitalize by being leaders and hopping in front of the BLM movement and creating the type of legislation that they need in order to calm down. They say that police violence is an issue. Let's pass criminal justice reform. They say that systemic racism exists when it comes to economic empowerment in the inner cities. Let's use the president's $500 billion plan that he has for us. But I think they made a huge mistake. But these are the lessons that we have to take from. These are the lessons that we have to learn in order to create a better, more positive Republican Party that is willing to take on the challenges in urban America, take on challenges like BLM, and be the leaders that we need in order to move forward in the future. Yeah,
Joe, final question, because they're wrapping me up here, 20, 30 seconds. The lockdowns, I just got to ask you about them because you're in California, you're living, I believe, in LA or LA area. You've got some of the strictest lockdowns in the country right now from your Mayor Garcetti and your Governor Newsom. Your thoughts on these ridiculous lockdowns that are literally crushing millions of businesses in the Golden State?
I think that the lockdowns are unconstitutional. I agree with the sheriff of LA County. I agree with the sheriff of Riverside County. I would not enforce a lockdown. I feel like if the coronavirus is real, we know it's real, but we still have an immune system. And I think that we need to be preaching healthy lifestyle livings instead of crushing economies and deeming businesses who use businesses to take care of their families as non-essentials. I'm almost tempted to sue the governor of California and create articles of impeachment to have him removed. I think those are conversations that we as not just conservatives, but Democrats and independents can have as well. I think that's a consensus for us to be able to move forward with creating a California that, you know, used to be a thriving state that is now failing.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard from the folks that are doing the recall Newsom, they've got almost 1 million signatures. So